The fight over Social Security and Medicare is once again taking center stage in Washington, and millions of seniors across America are watching closely. These programs are lifelines for older Americans, many of whom depend on them to pay for food, rent, utilities, and vital medications. For decades, seniors have contributed to these systems with the understanding that they would be protected in retirement. Yet now, as the national debt grows and partisan battles intensify, there are fresh threats to the stability of both Medicare and Social Security. The latest debate revolves around a bill criticized for being overly generous to billionaires while placing hidden cuts on programs everyday people depend on. At the heart of this issue is Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who has stepped forward to warn Americans about what he calls backdoor attempts to weaken Medicare and, by extension, endanger senior security. Welcome back to Truth Lens, where we bring you the real stories behind the headlines, cutting through the noise to uncover what truly matters for everyday Americans, especially seniors, retirees, and those living on fixed incomes. If you or a loved one rely on Social Security or Medicare, then this information is for you. Here at Truth Lens, we are committed to shining a spotlight on the latest developments that directly impact your financial well-being, your health care, and your dignity in retirement. On the Senate floor, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island gave a fiery speech warning of what he described as one of the dirtiest tricks hidden inside the so-called Beautiful for Billionaires bill. Legislation backed by Republicans that added an astonishing $4.1 trillion to the national debt. While much of the public conversation has focused on Medicaid cuts, Senator Whitehouse revealed that Medicare, the health lifeline for tens of millions of seniors, is also facing staggering reductions. According to him, buried in the bill is a pathway to nearly $500 billion in cuts to Medicare over the next decade, cuts that could devastate seniors who already struggle to afford hospital visits, prescription drugs, and preventive care. To understand why this is so serious, we need to break it down. The United States has a law called the Statutory Pay-As-You-Go Act, often referred to as PAYGO. This law requires that if Congress passes legislation that adds significantly to the national debt, automatic spending cuts kick in to offset the cost. And guess which program sits at the top of the chopping block? Medicare. This means that by approving a $4.1 trillion addition to the debt, lawmakers essentially triggered automatic reductions to Medicare, whether they admit it or not. Senator Whitehouse made it clear that the Congressional Budget Office has already run the numbers. In 2026, just 1 year from now, Medicare could face an automatic $45 billion cut. That is not a one-time reduction. It escalates year after year, climbing to a $76 billion annual cut by 2034. When added together, that's a crushing $491 billion lost to Medicare over 10 years. For seniors who rely on Medicare to cover surgeries, doctor visits, and essential prescriptions, such cuts could mean longer wait times, reduced coverage, or even losing access to care altogether. Now, what makes this even more alarming is that, according to Senator Whitehouse, Republicans could have easily protected Medicare with a simple fix. All it would have taken was a line in the legislation exempting Medicare from PAYGO cuts, but they chose not to include it. And when they had another opportunity to fix the issue in the continuing resolution to fund the government, they again refused. To Whitehouse, this shows that the cuts are not an accident or oversight. They're deliberate, a hidden strategy to weaken Medicare without having to openly vote against it. For seniors in America, this fight is about more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about real people, many of whom live on Social Security checks of $1,500 a month or less, trying to survive in an economy where groceries, rent, and medical costs climb higher every year. Seniors already skip meals to pay for prescriptions or delay doctor visits because of high co-pays. A $45 billion cut to Medicare could make those heartbreaking choices even more common. The stakes couldn't be higher, but there is also a counter effort underway. Senator Whitehouse has introduced what he calls the Medicare and Social Security Fair Share Act. This bill would raise the payroll tax cap, requiring Americans who earn more than $400,000 a year to pay into Social Security and Medicare at the same rate as ordinary workers. Right now, the payroll tax is capped so that higher income individuals don't pay on most of their earnings. By lifting or even eliminating this cap, the bill aims to ensure that the wealthiest Americans contribute their fair share, strengthening Medicare and Social Security for decades to come. According to Senator Whitehouse, the proposed legislation would protect Medicare and Social Security for at least 75 years. It would do this not only by removing the payroll tax cap, but also by modestly raising the net investment income tax from 3.8% to 5% for those earning over $400,000. These steps would generate enough revenue to safeguard the programs that seniors rely on while ensuring fairness in the system. This is not just a policy debate. It's a fight for dignity and survival for millions of older Americans. Seniors who worked hard their entire lives paying into the system with every paycheck are now being told that hidden cuts could jeopardize their health care. At the same time, billionaires and corporations continue to benefit from massive tax breaks. Senator Whitehouse's message is clear. Seniors should not have to sacrifice while the wealthiest Americans enjoy loopholes and exemptions. For the average retiree, the numbers feel less like Washington politics and more like day-to-day reality. Imagine you're 72 years old, living on a fixed Social Security income. Your rent just went up $150 a month. Groceries that cost you $75 last year now cost over $100. Your prescription drugs have a new $45 copay. And now you hear that Medicare could face nearly $500 billion in cuts, meaning more out-of-pocket expenses for you. This isn't an abstract policy issue. It's a difference between putting food on the table and paying for the medication that keeps you alive. Seniors across the nation are already under pressure. Rising inflation has eaten into the limited cost of living adjustments on Social Security checks. Utility bills are higher. Gasoline costs more. Even something as simple as buying fresh fruit or paying for eyeglasses can feel like a heavy burden. When seniors hear about trillion-dollar bills for billionaires, combined with looming cuts to their own lifelines, it feels like the system is stacked against them. And yet, there is hope. The Fair Share Act represents a vision where seniors are not forced to carry the weight of the national debt, where Medicare and Social Security are treated as promises rather than political bargaining chips. If passed, this legislation could protect benefits for generations, making sure that when you retire, you can do so with dignity and security. Senator Whitehouse's speech ended with a call to action, urging his colleagues to prevent these hidden cuts before they begin. But the truth is, it will take public awareness and pressure to make change possible. Seniors, families, and advocates across the country need to know what is at stake and demand that leaders in Washington stand up for Medicare and Social Security. As we close today, remember this: Social Security and Medicare are not gifts from the government. They are earned benefits paid for by decades of hard work. Seniors in America have already done their part. Now it's time for lawmakers to keep the promise. That's the latest from Washington. And as always, here at Truth Lens, we'll continue bringing you the updates that matter most to seniors, retirees, and working families. These are the stories that cut through the politics and focus on the impact these decisions have on your life. Stay tuned, because the fight to protect Social Security and Medicare is far from over, and the stakes couldn't be higher.